Hey, folks, this is Joe Betar, host of the Hunting Matters podcast, brought to you by Houston Safari Club Foundation. Before we get started this week, I do want to do a special shout out to you guys, to our listening and viewing audience. Our thoughts and prayers are with our friends in the Texas Hill Country this week who are dealing with the aftermath of the tragic floods that occurred over the 4th of July weekend. And I wanted to let everybody know that Houston Safari Club Foundation is going to be donating 100% of the proceeds for all new memberships in July to the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country's Flood Relief Fund. We've already launched it. We've got some really, really good responses and a lot of great donations. But if you sign up to become a member of the Houston Safari Club Foundation during the month of July, 100% of that money is going to go to this Flood Relief Fund. Also, just to let you guys know, Houston Safari Club Foundation is going to match any donations totaling up to $10,000 during the month of July, and any monies raised after that during the month of July are going to go to this flood relief fund. So go to our website at wehuntwegive.org, sign up to become a member, or click on any of the donate now buttons that are located at the bottom of all the web pages to make a donation. And we encourage you to do that to help all the folks out in the Texas Hill Country. They are, conservationists, hunters, outdoors people, and so we want to help those folks out. They really need our support at this time. So thank you very much, and I encourage you to go to wehuntwegive.org and help us help our friends in the Texas Hill Country. So thank you for that. All right, folks, on this week's episode of the Houston Safari Club Foundation's Hunting Matter podcast, I've got Joe Bailey, who's the president and partner of WildLife Ranch Solutions, and Chuck Dye, the operations manager for WildLife Ranch Solutions. As most of you guys know, WildLife Partners has been a longtime corporate sponsor and partner, supporter of the Houston Safari Club Foundation. And so I'm really happy to have these guys on this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it.
So Joe and Chuck, let's
you.
start. I like to talk to our guests a little bit about their own backgrounds before we kind of dive into WildLife Ranch Solutions. So Joe, can you actually a question to both of you, and you guys can fight over who goes first. But can each of you give a quick snapshot of your background and how you ended up at WildLife Ranch Solutions?
Yeah, I'll start that. So I met Brian Gilroy probably 5 years ago. My younger brother John, he's my only brother, but he's younger than I am. He was one of the first 5 employees for WildLife Partners, and he was the ranch manager for the Mountain Home facility in Mountain Home, Texas. Right, so that was the first ranch where they started their breeding partnerships, and I was out helping him during the COVID ice storm. It just we weren't ready for that, and it took a lot of work from a lot of people at the ranch to keep those animals alive, and we got it done. And Brian came out, and him and I were talking, and we we were like, man, we need to do something to help people be better prepared to raise these animals, and WildLife Ranch Solutions was kind of born out of that idea, and then we just started it and went from there. So that's how it started with respect to WildLife Ranch Solutions. So
What are you, what each of you, what is your background? Because I know you haven't lived in this world your entire life, your entire career. So kind of tell us a little bit about where you came from.
yeah, so I went to school here in the Hill Country in Center Point. I graduated from high school in Center Point. It's kind of lived there all my life. After high school, I joined the military. I just thought college wasn't really for me, and I joined the military and never regretted that. And I tried out for and was selected to go to the 75th Ranger Regiment, and I have never regretted that decision. It was a lot of life lessons, some of them much harder than others, but it was a great experience, and I loved it. After I got out right before September 11th, unfortunately. But after that, I was able to secure a position with a DoD contracting firm, and was immediately deployed to Iraq, and and I worked over there for about 2.5 years. Um, it kind of was what it was. It was a job in a combat zone, and we executed the job. Thankfully, I have all my limbs, and I'm still here. So I feel very grateful for that. After that, I became involved in oil and gas industry. I saw an opportunity was presented to me to become a directional driller to drill horizontal wells, and I pursued that for about a decade prior to getting into business with WildLife Partners and Brian Gilroy and the Gilroy brothers. Honestly, both of them. There's obviously Brian and Chris, but all my planning was done with Brian, and we haven't looked back. So that's it in a nutshell, really. I'm married. I have 3 children. I have 2 small children at home, and life is good.
Awesome. Chuck, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm a native of Central Alabama. Always been interested in the outdoors, always combat, and that's where you could find me. As I reached college age, talked with my parents, and they said that no, you couldn't just go, live in the woods like a wild man. You got to go to school and do something with your life. So the rest of my family is from Mississippi, and I was looking into forestry, looking into land management. I'd always had a kind of an idol on some family hunting land that I wanted to grow up to be. So I said, well, let me look around, see what's available, and I settled on Mississippi State, where at the time they had the number one production forestry school in the nation. So after touring there, I decided that was kind of the right fit, and it fit my goals. Was there for 5 years. They only let the best students come back for an extra year. So graduated that right at the beginning of COVID. Moved to Colorado. Lived on a plus or minus 90,000 acre cattle ranch, where we were focused on holistic land management, and kind of got my basis there. And then from there, moved to Texas. Didn't like the cold of Colorado too much. Was the ranch manager for a startup ranching company, exotics company. For whatever reason, that wasn't quite the right fit for me. So I happened to be looking for a new job at a Dallas Safari Club, actually, 4 years ago now. Was just walking around trying to do a little prospecting. Happened to pass by the WildLife Partners booth at the time. Saw a flyer that mentioned consulting and land management. I said, well, let me look at that. Happened to look up Joe Bailey was sitting there, and I thought, I'm going to make a pitch to him and see. Didn't know who he was. Didn't know the kind of the history of the company. And luckily enough, he took a flyer on me, and been there ever since. I think the company was only,
Very
4 or 5
new,
months old at
very
the
new.
time.
You were the first employee, obviously.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys are both OGs with WildLife Partners and WildLife Ranch Solutions.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It was good. I'm glad I hired the guy.
You let them stay around for a while, huh?
Absolutely.
Hunting Matters is sponsored by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Under the visionary leadership of founder Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's is leading North America's largest conservation movement. Together with their partners in conservation, they're positively shaping the future of the outdoors through donations, grant making, and advocacy. The 501c3 Outdoor Fund raises funds to support conservation efforts by activating more than 200 million passionate sportsmen and women, rounding up their purchases in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's stores and online. Visit BassPro.com or Cabela's.com today.
So, what's the dynamic between your two roles? So Chuck, you're the operations manager, and Joe, obviously, you're the president. How do you guys work together? I mean, because let's look at it from this standpoint. A lot of people that are viewing or listening to the podcast don't know anything about the exotic wildlife industry. So,
Yep.
How do your guys? How does your day to day work, and how do you guys partner team up on running this organization?
So that's a good question. Initially, it started out with, I was in the truck with the sales staff from WildLife Partners. We're going to ranch meetings. We're going and talking to ranchers. We're educating them about the process, about the industry, about the business structure when you're buying these animals. And there's a lot to this industry. There's a lot of ins and outs. There's a lot of things that can seem like they're difficult to navigate. Like going into any kind of business, there's a certain level of unknown. So I would go along, and just growing up here, I was always aware of this industry. I never directly worked in it. I was around all the people that were involved in this industry, whether it be hunting or breeding. So I was somewhat familiar with it. So it was a pretty easy transition into operating a company that focused solely on breeding super exotics. Um, I was going out and meeting these people. I brought Chuck on. So then it became Chuck came with me. I got his feet wet. This is what the customers at, just familiarizing him with the industry, the customer base that we mainly deal with, talking to him about, some of the best practices that we use and why we use them. And it was, and Chuck is very analytical. So and so am I. So we meshed well. From there, I would send him with Tad Honeycutt, who's the capture. He's the capture of all. He captures all outside animals that WildLife Partners purchases. One of the best there is. I sent Chuck with him. Go with Tad. Just be a sponge. So it was a matter of familiarizing him with the industry, getting that solid knowledge base down, and from there, him and I would go on sales meetings, and I finally just cut him loose, and he hasn't looked back. So now it's just evolved into I'm steering the ship, and Chuck executes. I still get involved with certain customers. I still get involved with a lot of the customers, but Chuck oversees the bread and butter services of our company, and he oversees the other consultants. So that's basically how it looks on a day-to-day basis.
Right. I got to tell you, you prompted a thought in my brain. I've actually had the good fortune to go on some captures with the teams over there at WildLife Partners, and I've seen different animal captures. I was a veterinary technician for a few years when I was young. I got to tell you, I have never seen a more organized, more professional, more efficient approach than what you guys have done. I've been on a lot of captures, but I was very impressed by not only the professionalism and the efficiency of the operation, but the general knowledge and care of the animals in the forefront during that process.
That's correct. That's
I mean,
correct.
it was just like, it'd be like if you're going to get your dog, pick up your dog that was, in need of care or need of medication or whatever. I mean, it was that. These are obviously many of these breeds of animals are they're big animals, but I
Yeah.
was just amazed at the care that was given to the treatment of these animals. It was just, I mean, I didn't expect anything less, but I was like, wow, man, these guys, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So the capture personnel at Partners, the majority of the leaders in that space, in that capture space at WildLife Partners, they have never done anything other than catch animals their entire life. And I'll use Tad Honeycutt again as an example. He he's been catching animals his entire life. He's caught animals since he was in high school. That's all he's ever done, and he is without a doubt the best there is. He is very good at what he does. And then when you give him the support of a veterinarian team, well, it just goes over the moon. He's got all the practical application down. He knows the drugs. He knows the doses. He knows, if it's 90 degrees outside, how much of this drug to give. If it's 45 degrees outside, you don't give the same dose. Tad is a very valuable part of the team, and they are good. Yes.
I absolutely agree. So, Chuck, I'm curious. With your background and your education and your knowledge in conservation, and all your past experiences, how does that lens shape your approach to ranch development?
It shapes it. I would say it shapes the entirety of it. So my concentration in college was environmental conservation. So whereas the School of Mississippi State is focused around production, timber, loblolly pine, my courses were more towards how do we regenerate the land after the clear cut. Looking at the riparian zones, identifying xeric versus riparian zones. And so when I go out on ranches today, I'm doing exactly that. I'm looking at it and evaluating what the species that need to be there and how to use them as a tool. I goes to the Aldo Leopold. The tools, I think it's 7 tools now: the fire, the plow, the axe. So I try to model a lot of these animals after bison actually, and how they once affected the landscape. So because we always want to talk about taking the land from what it is today to in a year from today it being improved, being worth more both financially but also environmentally. So everything we do is based around improving the land. We don't ever want to degrade the land. Everything's around improving it.
Awesome. Awesome. So Joe, like you said, you guys were there from the beginning. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when getting Wildlife Ranch Solutions off the ground?
Easy question. Education. Education. The majority, I've grown up in the hill country. It's where the exotic industry started. And a lot of people know this, but some may not. So I'm just going to repeat it. The first exotics came to the hill country in the late 1920s to the YO Ranch, and they were axis deer from the San Antonio Zoo. So there's been exotics in the hill country we're closing in on 100 years now. And of course, the YO Ranch today looks much different than it did back then, but it was much larger and water gaps blow out. So now there are axis deer everywhere. But with respect to your question, most people don't know that breeding exotics for any reason other than hunting is a business. They don't understand the tax incentive that's involved with breeding exotics. And they are considered livestock. There's no difference between, in the eyes of the IRS, there's no difference between a Hereford cow and a sable cow. So that makes them tax deductible. And, historically, people have guys and gals that have done well in life. They have a ranch and they've been to Africa and they say, man, I did not know you could own a sable in America. So let me get 5 of them. And this is 20 years ago. They were probably $3,500 a piece or less. Let me buy some sable, some wildebeest, some zebra. I like blessbok. I like axis deer. I like, all these different species that are beautiful and really do enhance the property. And they enhance the lives of the people that come onto that property, and they see these animals and they see the offspring and they get excited about it. Well, there's always been a component missing, and it's the animal husbandry component. How do I keep these animals not only alive but thriving and producing offspring? Those offspring can be sold back onto the open market, and there's tax incentives involved with that. So by far, and continues to be our biggest obstacle, is educating landowners on the benefits of raising these animals. Period. That's it. It's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a little bit ahead of myself. I want to take a step back here. For those people who are watching, listening to the podcast, and those people who are new to this world, that have no clue about exotic wildlife industry. Chuck, what if you were to give me your elevator speech, what would you tell me that the broad stroke perspective of what does Wildlife Ranch Solutions do? And Joe, you talked about it a little bit, but who are your typical clients?
So I would say the elevator speech, kind of the tagline would be it's conservation through capitalism. It's the most real, tangible way for people, for everyday humans to have a massive impact on these animals, on the world. Take Kenyan mountain bongo or Dama gazelle, for example. In their native ranges, there's 100, maybe 200 of each species in the native range. In Texas alone, there's probably 300-400 bongo. And so just being able to have a real tangible effect, and watch them move around, watch them interact with each other and it can't be beat.
Capital Farm Credit understands that there's something about the outdoors that pulls you in. Could be the fresh air, the colors, the smells, the animals, the freedom. It's all just a part of who you are. And with our recreational land loans, you can purchase land for whatever outdoor pursuit you please. That way, the outdoors won't just be in your soul, it'll also be in your name. To learn more, visit CapitalFarmCredit.com. Together, we're better.
So, Joe, how do you guys help ranch owners go from just land and animals to a fully functioning, tax compliant, profitable operation? I know
So
that's a big ask, but
no, we've got it. So the first thing I do is, and Chuck and I both do, is we schedule a meeting at the ranch. We'll talk to the owners before we go driving around and looking at whatever it what what's this and what's that on the ranch. I want them to understand the benefits of this business. I want them to understand the ins and outs of this business. And so there's always some lead up conversation about the incentives. Um, and from there, we talk about, hey, what makes you happy? What do you want to see out here? What's your goals for the ranch? Um, I have a strong feeling most customers, and they all do, they subsidize their ranch. Mom or dad has been successful, or mom and dad have been successful, and they've got a ranch, and it's beautiful, and it's got a water feature on it, and it's great. And that takes money to take care of a ranch. So, hey, um, let's talk about not subsidizing your ranch. Let's talk about cash flowing your ranch through raising these animals. The enjoyment that comes from that, it's a no brainer. It's a no brainer. So we'll get to the ranch. What do you want to see? What's your goals? Talk about that again. Let's drive around and look. I want to see the ranch. Will the ranch support the species that you want? Let's say you've got a ranch in Van Horn, Texas, far west Texas. I want bongo. Okay, there's some problems there we need to discuss. We need to talk through that, right? They're from mountain rainforest, far different environment than Van Horn. So our thing is putting the right animals in the right places, utilizing the land base in its entirety. I stole that from Chuck. I'm willing to, say that, but utilize the land base in its entirety, and not have your ranch looking like you've had 500 head of Spanish goats out there for 4 years straight, where it's just picked clean. We want the ranch to look good. We want the animals to look good. We want them producing offspring. That's the goal.
okay. And Wildlife Ranch Solutions, I mean, you guys kind of you're known for turnkey ranch development. Or is there anything else involved in that process?
Oh, certainly, yeah, and yeah, I skipped a lot. There's infrastructure needs. You've got water, feed, feeder style. The size of your animals is going to dictate the style of feeder that you need. They have to be able to reach the feeding tubes. Um, it- your geographical location is going to dictate whether or not you need shelters and whether or not those shelters need to be heated. Species that won't go in shelters. There's species that will go in shelters. Um, what was I had another thought, but infrastructure design is huge. Giraffes. You should not own a giraffe unless you have a giraffe barn. So things like that. There's people that say, "Hey, I want giraffes," and we say, "Okay, but let's take it a couple of steps back here. We need to talk about a giraffe barn. There's certain things and certain characteristics of giraffes that don't allow them to be in cold weather for a long period of time. So um, just familiarizing the customer, the potential customer, with the infrastructure needs that they'll have to have present on the ranch to support the species is a very big part of it.
Yeah.
And to that point, I'd also say, the silviculture is a large part. The actual act of land management is a big part. So, typically we go on these ranches and think people say, "I've got green, it's great. I've got trees, I've got grass. This is great." Well, bongo browse, but they don't graze. So, if all you've got is tall Bermuda grass, some animals are going to be happy, but some won't be. Bongo won't be. Sable would be. But also, so we also kind of like to look at evaluating the species that you're interested in and how we can augment the land, supplement the land to where it's producing. Your land is actually producing the majority of their forage instead of bringing every bite to them, like many people do think. We want them, we want the browsers out there browsing, trimming your trees for you, and we want the grazers out there mowing your lawn. Who doesn't want to see a big herd of sable out there mowing the lawn? It's way better than seeing me out there on the mower. I promise you.
For sure.
Absolutely. You guys do a great job of balancing conservation and profitability. How do you strike that balance when you're doing these projects? And I'll throw that to either one of you.
Um, Expectations, managing expectations. Um, it, it's again how you come to the conclusion of balancing between conservation and capitalism is the devil's in the details, right? I want to conserve Dama gazelle. Okay, great. There's places where you can do that, and there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to make sure that they in fact thrive. A coyote will decimate a herd of Dama gazelle. So in order to get to that conclusion that hey, I want to be involved in conservation and I do want to make money. I have people that say, listen, I just want these animals. I don't necessarily want to make money. Fair enough. Okay. That doesn't mean that we don't prioritize the health and welfare of your animal population on your ranch, because that is literally our goal. If your animals aren't having babies, if they're not breeding, if they're not happy, if their dietary needs aren't being met, they're not going to be happy, and they may skip a breeding cycle. So you can't really have one without the other. You can't have one without the other, because if no babies are being born that you're not being able to either retain to enhance your herds or sell onto the open market, you're not making money. But that just means the animals aren't surviving, and we don't do that. We don't put people in a place where their animals are more than likely going to die for one reason or the other, whether that be nutrition, predators, or parasites. One of those three is going to kill your animals, and we do all we can to alleviate that and mitigate that risk. So that's it. One is, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Happy animals are worth more. Are worth more too. You go out there and you would look at these animals. If they're moping around and they look miserable, people aren't want to give you $1, much less 10,000, 20,000. But if they're happy, they're going to be coats are being shiny, everything's going to be looking great. People are going to say, I'm willing. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to do this too.
Yep.
Yeah. That leads me kind of to my next question. Chuck, what is probably the thing that most people get wrong when they're and I hate to use this term, but when they want to start or run an exotic game ranch, or one that they haven't had exotics on before, or maybe they buy one, there's exotic game on there, and they're like, help guys, please tell me what I'm doing.
Yeah, I would say that the number one thing people get wrong, and I alluded to it earlier, is two things. One, that these animals are just like cows and horses that they grew up with. And then the second is that if something's green, it's good. Oftentimes we go out there, I'll meet new landowners or landowners that have got animals already. And they'll think, well, great. Growing up, I had cows and horses, and I put them out here on the lot, and I walked out here and I gave them hay. I gave them a little grain, and they were happy. And it's just not the case. Some of these animals are more gregarious. They don't mind being near you. Depending on how they were raised, Dama gazelle is a great example. A lot of times they'll hang out with you. But some animals don't want to be anywhere near you, and they don't want to be, in a very, I'd say, managed setting. And then also looking at the pastures again, the green is not always good. I go out there. One client we've had in the past is that we have all this grass, we have all this good stuff. Well, we don't know why our animals are kind of looking a little drawn up. And we went out there, and it was nightshade, it was cockleburr, it was doveweed. So yeah, green, it looks lush and pretty in the picture, but in reality, you've got two plant species that will kill the animals, and another is just not palatable. So these animals were walking around and basically just looking for a way to escape their reality. And so kind of knowing the species that you have and what setting they need to be in is really helpful.
Hunting Matters is presented by Copandero Indoor Archery Pistol and Rifle Range, your premier indoor archery pistol and rifle shooting destination. Located in Oak Ridge North, right next to the Woodlands, Copandero offers two 25-yard pistol ranges, a 100-yard rifle range, and a 25-yard archery range. Whether you're honing your skills or just starting, Copandero has everything you need, including rentals, classes, a retail store, an in-house cafe, and a VIP lounge. Join Copandero today for an unmatched shooting experience. To learn more, go to copandero.com.
Yeah. Eh, I'm curious, when your clients that you work with, what's the balance of people who want to own these animals and have these types of properties for hunting versus viewing?
Most of our clients, they're all hunters. Actually, one of them's not a hunter, but that's fine. She's a very passionate conservationist. Um, most of them hunt, but most of them don't hunt the animals that are on their ranch. It's strictly for business and pleasure, viewing, basically viewing and breeding, and just that aesthetic. There's not many things that are cooler than walking out onto the front porch of a lodge and seeing a herd of sable. Even more impressive in my book, a herd of Grevy zebra. Uh, Extraordinarily rare, beautiful animals. But seeing an animal that you'll never see anywhere else unless you go to that animal specific range in Africa and say, I want to see a Grevy zebra, Kenya and Ethiopia. You'll never see one, and that's what they want. That's what they want at the end of the day. Some people do they sell hunts, no problem. That's no problem. In that case, then we have a just a little bit different management philosophy, but it's all still rooted in success and health and happiness of your animal herds. So a lot of people, all of them hunt, but not all of them hunt their ranch.
Right. The first time I'd actually seen Grevy zebra was on one of your properties, and I was blown away by how beautiful that animal is.
Striking,
Chris,
beautiful, beautiful animal.
I was like, "Holy cow! What are you guys eating your zebras?" And Chris Gilroy was like, "Those are Grevies.
Yep.
Let me tell you all about them." I was like, "Wow!" I
Yes.
mean, it was mind blowing to see these animals.
Amazing. And I'll say the other day, my brother called me and he catches animals all day, every day. And he said, man, I just rounded the corner at the ranch in Carrizo Springs and I saw 6 heavy bred Grevy's mares. Nobody sees that. Nobody's going to see that. And just to, knowing they're heavy bred, knowing they're about to start having offspring, man, it's a great feeling. It's a beautiful thing whenever those types of animals, and really any animals that you have or are around, are producing offspring, they're healthy enough to support that offspring. That's a win. That's a win.
Yeah, such cool animals. So, you guys ever see the show or watch the show MythBusters?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're gonna do our own mini episode of MythBusters here in this section.
Go ahead.
Let's bust up some myths together. What's the most persistent misconception that you guys hear about the exotic wildlife industry?
It's purely hunting. I would say it's purely hunting. Is that it's just you walk out there and you click at them and say come here Betty, and it outruns the kudu, outruns the Cape buffalo, whatever. And to be honest, I had that growing up. Being from the southeast, this is a foreign concept, and you hear about these high fence ranches, regardless of use. You think they're just a bunch of pets, and I quickly learned when I first moved here that was an ignorant misconception of me. These animals are by and large still very much wild. A Cape buffalo, no matter how it's raised, is still a Cape buffalo. A sable cow, no matter if you bottle fed her or she was mother raised, you want to go mess with her calf. She's not gonna ask you nicely to leave it alone. These are still very wild animals. I'd say that's probably the number one.
So I've touched on one, but I can give you two. Uh, Exotics do not qualify for an ag exemption in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a big one. And I'm not going to say most, but a lot of appraisal districts don't know that either. So that's when we get involved for our clients and we go and we educate the appraisal districts, and we've had to do it. And shockingly, we've had to do it right here in the hill country where there's been exotics on every piece of property. There's an exotic has stepped foot on it at this point in the game. So there's that one. Um, the ag exemption part, and then you
To be clear, they are ag exempt.
yeah,
Just
they
to
are
be
100%, 100%. They're livestock, right? And then again, it's that they're not tax deductible. So we've had many clients and many potential clients whose CPA was the biggest obstacle into getting them into this business. We have had to get other CPAs involved that know tax law regarding livestock, and or specialty CPAs that are involved in the livestock industry, and have them have we have calls, we have Zoom meetings, and say yes, they are in fact deductible. So it just goes back to the education piece. That's it. Most people just have no idea that they're tax deductible, and yeah, they will support an ag exemption, a 1D1 open space exemption in the state of Texas. So in other states as well.
Is that something you guys have to deal with on a daily, weekly basis? I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it is. It is.
But I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax strategist or anything of anything near near that. But I've had to call into the appraisal districts often. Like you just said, right here, close to home, and explain it to them like that the IRS is the bigger fish in this pond, and they say so. And it's amazing. It's just a lack of education or lack of information. Better way of putting that.
And Joe, I kind of wanted to add something here. The exotic industry in 2007 was worth what was it, Chuck? 3 billion annually. In the year that Henry Cisneros had the Texas A&M economic impact study, it was like $3 billion annually or less. And today we estimate it, with the emergence of wildlife partners, we estimate it to be 8 to 10 billion annually. And the economic impact, that's massive for the state of Texas and for landowners. And my point is that they still don't know. They still don't know. This industry flies completely under the radar for the most part. There are several laws that dictate, this and that with respect to certain things that we do regularly. But for the most part, again, no one knows. And we're trying to change that. We're actively working towards educating landowners, and just introducing more people to the benefits of this business.
And to that point, there's a lot of large people who have been in this industry for many, many years that we'll talk to that are just completely unaware that these animals are tax deductible. That when purchased for the purpose of breeding, it makes this a business, and instead of just spending money, and yeah, it's not a hobby.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Obviously not. I mean, you guys have, educated me today alone on just all the details and considerations you have before even putting animals on these types of properties. I mean, you don't realize, I don't think most people realize how much work, research, knowledge, education goes into this process. And I'm glad you guys were on today to educate people on that.
Hunting Matters is presented by DEA Ranch. Are you looking for the ultimate South Texas hunting experience? Then look no further than DEA Ranch. DEA Ranch offers some of the best whitetail and exotic game hunts in South Texas year-round. Whether you're looking to fill your freezer or put that next hunting memory on the wall, their professional guides are focused on ensuring each client has a memorable and exciting hunting experience. DEA Ranch offers guided hunts, professional staff, chef-prepared meals, trophy preparation, and more. To learn more, go to dearanch.com. That's dearanch.com.
What do you say to critics or the uninformed people who say, "Oh, exotic species hurt native species"?
Have a conversation with them about how they have no impact. They coexist. They're fine, and just talk to them about the feeding habits of certain animals and the feeding habits of other animals, and how that there's no opportunity for them to butt heads over a food source or something like that. So, there's certain species that if you put them in the same pasture and you only have one feeder, if you put Gemsbok and scimitar horned oryx in the same pasture, and you put one feeder out there, you have now created a problem. But that's not necessarily addressing your question, which was native wildlife, right? So wildlife, I see it every day at my house. A herd of axis deer comes in my backyard on the place I live in Bandera, and whitetail are right there with them. They just walk around. They're similar in their feeding styles, and they just no. There's not a huge opportunity for conflict between native game and exotics.
And to that, so we oftentimes see that the whitetail benefit, they prosper when exotics are actually brought onto the property. So everyone, growing up, use myself as an example, we'll put up mineral blocks on our hunting ground, hunting land. We'll, in the winter time or in the fall, we'll have some food plots planted. But that was the extent of what we did for our whitetail growing up. And many places, that's what the extent is here. But when you have, a $40,000 plus kudu, or sable, or these other things, other species on here, you're providing feed, you're providing supplemental water, you're doing that land management, you're improving the land, and by and large, the whitetail and other native game prosper. And I tell people all the time too, they love quail. And Joe's heard me say it numerous times. The best exotic ground a lot of times is the best quail ground, and vice versa. These animals moving around the property naturally. They're not sitting on a feeder. They're not sitting at water. They're grazing. They're browsing. They're opening up the country. Quail thrive, and to that point, Texas horny toad thrive as well. They really, when done correctly and or stocked appropriately, these native game typically benefits.
Agreed.
Do you guys think that the exotic wildlife industry is still greatly misunderstood even within the ranching community?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tell me more about that, and why, and how do we overcome it?
It's again, I'm going to go back to Wildlife Partners have been around less than 10 years, and we're 4 years old. Wildlife Ranch Solutions is 4 years old. And I'll give you a good example of why my opinion is I agreed with you. Yes, that most ranchers aren't really familiar with this industry. I ask a lot of people, what do you think the largest consumer of exotics is? In the previous up till five years ago, what do you think the largest consumer of exotic game is in the state of Texas? Everybody says hunting, right? Texas is known for exotic hunting. Well, it's not. It was death loss. So death loss was the largest consumer of exotics in the state of Texas. Many
Improper management.
It's just a management issue. So a lot of these animals have a mineral requirement, and if you don't meet that mineral requirement, you're going to have problems. And they're not problems that pop up overnight. They're problems that pop up over the course of a year. And these animals will kind of their body condition will degrade over time, and then we'll have a hard freeze and they'll die. Well, damn, the freeze killed them. No, you have a mineral deficiency in your herds, and really there's tests and things that you can do to determine this, but there's not a lot of as far as I know. I've gone to Sam Houston University and talked to the students there and the wildlife societies at Texas A&M and Sam Houston about the exotic industry. So the exotic industry isn't something that's being taught widely. It's not being taught at colleges and universities. So the word's not out. So unless you work in this industry and you've come up kind of under someone that has been in this industry for a while and they've worked the kinks out through trial and error over years, you just don't know. So I know that Texas Tech, and I think A&M is introducing a new into their veterinary schools courses on exotics, because you can't ignore the economic impact of this industry in the state, and it's spreading. We've got customers out of state now, and very exciting. So it's an education piece across the board. You have a guy that's like, man, my axis deer are doing great. And, the guy across the road's like, man, mine aren't doing good at all. We've got a problem somewhere. I've seen it in sable. I've seen people that have 24 sable in a herd, and we're driving around the pasture, and I see a dead one over there, a dead offspring, and hey, can we cruise over there and look at that carcass? Well, that's a female. That's a little heifer calf. That's a $40,000 animal retail. So I usually lead with the, do you know how much that's worth? And then is it an attention getter, right? Because there's got to be an attention getter. If not, then it's just another dead animal, and it's part of ranching, and it's not part of ranching. Your animals shouldn't die. If they're dying, something is wrong. Whether it's, again, predators, parasites, nutrition, something is not being done right. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's figure this out. You owe it to the animals. So
Yeah.
I just keep going back to the education piece, and that's what it is.
And I would say that the wider ranching community outside of exotics, yeah, they typically do have a negative view. And it does go back to education, but I think it also goes to, there's a perception that it's only, Mike Megabucks who has these exotics, and they're going to come. It's some person from Houston, some person from Dallas who's going to come out to this property one day a year maybe, and they're just going to buy them all up, and there goes the cows, there goes the whitetail, there goes way of life, and that perception is just not there. There's everybody, people from all walks of life are in this industry, who are prospering in this industry, and as we said about the natives, again, we're raising these animals as a tool for land management, not to degrade your land, but to improve your land. So if we can make it through the use of exotics, if we can make your land more valuable, more productive, then there's and be supporting conservation as well, all while making money. There really shouldn't be any hang up there.
Nobody wants to imagine an emergency on a hunting trip, but when the unexpected happens, you want the team of medical and security experts at Global Rescue to be there for you. Global Rescue Operations Centers are staffed by experienced personnel, and you'll always speak to an expert on the first call. Global Rescue provides unparalleled capabilities to transport members to the hospital of their choice, not just the closest. So trade what-ifs for peace of mind with convenient travel services designed for the unexpected. Learn more at globalrescue.com/huntingmatters. You guys mentioned earlier Texas was the launching pad of the exotic industry. Are you starting to see it grow across the U.S.?
Yes, we certainly are. And I'll give you an example. We had a gentleman at the last WildLife Partners in-person exotic auction. Which, if the listeners have not been, please go. It's an amazing event. You can watch millions of dollars worth of the finest animals being sold, and it's a really cool deal. So,
Before you go forward, when's the next one?
I don't know. It's
I want to say like October 4th or 5th. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's when it is.
okay. Yeah.
Before we leave that subject, one last thing. Where can people find out about it?
WildlifePartners.com to find out where their next auction is going to be. Sign up for the email alerts, and you'll get an email that gives all the details. It's at the Bevy Hotel in Bernie, so you can get a room. It's a really cool deal.
I heard it's a fantastic event. I've got to make it this year.
It's an amazing event, and for people who are interested in the industry, or maybe just kind of dipping their toes in but don't know, it's free to attend, and you can come in there, and it's coming into that event, and it's a time where you can talk to any number of different people who are already in there, anywhere from multimillionaires to just average Joes who have been in the industry from just now to 30 plus years. So you can really get a good feel for what makes sense, what's true and what's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And it's a really educational event as well.
Yeah. So Joe, I interrupted you. We're talking about expansion of exotics across the U.S.
Yeah. So at that auction, there was a gentleman there from Florida, and I was introduced to him, and he was just dumbfounded. He said, I didn't even know this existed. It's the same thing that a lot of people say whenever they first come in and they first start seeing the amount of impact that this industry has. We didn't even know this was a thing. So I'm actively working with him, and Chuck has been in contact with him extensively. what we're trying to do is set up an educational event in the state of Florida. And just due to the temperature in Florida, it's very ideal. There in North Florida, there's a lot of big ranches, a lot of big open country up there. So there's a lot of opportunity, and Florida's a wealthy state. There's a lot of money there. There's people that can take advantage of the financial benefits of this. So we're actively working with him to set up an educational event in Florida to go over there and say, hey, listen, you can raise these animals in Florida as well. So we get a lot of traction. We're dealing with some guys in some other Southeast states now. So we hope to expand into those states and introduce these people to this industry and talk to them about, different strategies with respect to keeping these animals. Yes, you can hunt these animals. Yes, you can breed these animals. Yes, you can sell the offspring to other ranches. Yes, you can breed for the best genetics. So their goals just kind of dictate how we approach them and approach their roadmap to success in this business. Really is how we do it.
Are you looking for an investment that goes beyond the ordinary? WildLife Partners is the nation's leader in breeding and consulting for the exotic wildlife industry. When you invest in wildlife, you're not just acquiring a 100% tax-deductible asset, you're playing a vital role in the conservation of endangered species. Do you own land? You can turn your ranch into a profitable wildlife-driven business. And even if you don't own land, that's no problem. WildLife Partners offers unique opportunities for non-landowners to invest in conservation while enjoying significant tax benefits and potential cash flow. Yeah. We talked earlier, you guys talked about money talks and, the money factor. How do you guys help clients avoid the quote unquote hobby ranch IRS classification? What do you guys do? What are the key business planning elements that are involved in something like that?
Chuck, go ahead. This is right up Chuck's
Yeah.
alley. So what he does.
Yeah. So we actually write the business plan for them. So within these business plans, they are specialized to each an individual property. And we go through everything from tax data to industry information, but then we kind of get into your actual ranch. So we look at do the ranch overview. We provide you with what we call counsel or short to long-term management objectives, kind of your guiding principles. We look at stocking rates. We look at soil. We look at vegetation. We give it the entire picture for. So if you had to just take this map and go forward with it with no other guidance, you what you have a guiding light. You have your North Star there, and that's what establishes your for-profit motive. That's a critical part, and it's not just a hobby status. This is not something that you do as a side note. You have to have the supplemental feed. You have to be selling offspring and providing the information that shows why what you're doing and why you're doing it. So in the event you were to be audited, you have at least some ground to stand on. Just when those people do come calling.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to. Sorry, Joe, to cut you off. I kind of want to add a little bit on there. The IRS has released the data that states the best defense against being given a hobby ranch status is a business plan. And the business plans that Chuck produces are top notch. I always have a bunch of them at the Houston Safari Club show. At the convention, I hand them out. They're all sterile. It's just an example of, hey, this is what they look like. They're super cool with map overlays. And Chuck didn't mention, we include return on investment data for any animals that you want to raise and any animals that you might want to raise in the future. So we're showing that you've done that due diligence. And again, if you are audited, you can just hand one over to, you give one to your CPA. And we produce multiple copies for the owners. Hand one over, and there you go. As far as business plan goes, these things are amazing. They're beautiful business plans.
That service is also tax deductible itself as well.
It is.
Really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All of our services are tax deductible, from business planning to our ongoing consulting.
That's good to know. I had no clue that everything was tax deductible. You talked earlier about you mentioned the term super exotics. A lot of people don't know what that is. What's a super exotic?
Super exotic. And you know, so in the hill country in Texas, these animals, like I've said, they've been here for nearly 100 years. You've got stuff that free ranges. So I've seen, just being around here all my life, I have seen some wild animals just walking around across from property to property through low fence places. Um, I've seen a bongo. A friend of mine caught a male sable and two sable cows behind his house in a residential area. Um, I've I've seen elk, fallow, axis, sika, black buck, you name it. And the rule of thumb on kind of a super exotic is if you can go catch it, if it free ranges, if it's considered a free range animal, it's not super. So black buck, axis, fallow, sika, chuck,
Nil guy.
nilgai. Yeah, nilgai
Yeah.
is not a super.
Scimitar.
It's the lower value animals, Joe, is what it kind of boils down to. Anything that's less than, around $5,000 a head, whether it be a male or a female. It's just kind of a way that, it's kind of industry speak, but we've kind of put it out there. There's commons and there's supers, and that's just how we refer to them. Axis deer are common, sable, absolutely a super.
Yeah.
If it has a stable feral population, that's is growing on its own in the state of Texas, it's a common. It's like Nilgai originated down on the King Ranch, and now if you go down towards Raymondville, that area, you're just as likely to see a Nilgai standing on the side of the road now as you are a whitetail. Same for scimitar and aoudad.
I think, I have a compartmentalized brain, so that helps me understand it better. That you've got these buckets of these specific groups of animals. I'm curious what's hot right now. What species are, as the kids say, trending?
So they're the ones that have been trending for a while, and they're going to continue to trend. You've got sable, kudu, bongo, giraffe. Chuck, what else are we seeing? Grevies.
Grevies are hot right now. We're kind of seeing a push towards some of the smaller exotics too. They're even lesser known stuff like springbok is a big one. Grant's gazelle is becoming hotter and hotter by the day. Both of those, if you're not familiar, springbok, just crazy fun animals, quick little speedsters from Africa. They do a fun jump called pronking that once you watch them do it, you'll fall in love. Grant's gazelle, an unknown, an underrated gazelle species, but when you see them, they're one of the larger gazelle species. And they have big, 25, 30-inch long lyre shaped horns, and they're beautiful. So kind of we're seeing a push towards some of these lesser known species as well.
Yeah, that's true. We are. Yeah.
In the heart of nature, give your deer the nutrition they deserve with Record Rack Deer Feeds. The premium feeds support antler growth and overall herd health. Whether you're a wildlife enthusiast or a dedicated hunter, Record Rack Deer Feeds provide essential nutrients for a thriving herd. Choose Record Rack Deer Feeds for optimal deer nutrition. Visit recordrack.com to learn more.
So obviously, you guys love what you do. You've been doing it for a long time. I can tell by your voices just alone that you're very passionate about it. What excites you guys about the future of the exotic industry, and what's next for WildLife Ranch Solutions?
Oh, what's exciting to me is seeing a person that didn't even know what a Grevy zebra was, own one, raise them, watch them produce offspring, and watch that excitement in their lives. That's what gets me. I owned a giraffe, and I was like, okay, we have a giraffe, and then she got bred, and she had a baby. It's the coolest thing ever. It's not as cool seeing your own kids being born. Like, that's the best. It was absolutely amazing, and you just can't help but fall in love with these little critters. They're cute, and then you realize, hey, more people need to do this. This is a very fulfilling business, and aside from the tax benefits, and that's it really. And as far as where we're going, just educate as many people as we can. That's why we're at the Houston Safari Club convention. We go to some of the other conventions, and we just love talking to people about opportunity, the opportunity at their ranch, the opportunity at their friend's ranch. Yes, you can have a sable. Yes, you can have a black wildebeest. Most people think that the only wildebeest are white bearded or blues, depending on whatever you refer to them as. There's another species called a black, and it's extraordinarily rare. Beautiful animals. So seeing people become excited and be successful is that's my goal. That's where we're headed.
And I'd say for me, it's the effect that this industry can have on the nation at large, but also the environment. I'm really excited about our expansion into various states, both the southeast and westward. Big thing like we've talked about is pairing these species in the right environment to succeed. So species like Gemsbok need to be in more arid conditions. So we're really excited to see how that particular species goes up in value again as we expand west. And then there's species that do really well in kind of wetter terrains like Sitatunga or the bongo. So kind of doing a little bit of species conservation there is a big part. But I'm also excited about the economic impact that this industry can have on other various states. Because this industry is predicated around more rural areas, which traditionally are poor areas in a lot of the country. I'm excited to see what kind of impact we can have in areas like the Mississippi Delta, one of the poorest regions in the nation, but is also fantastic farm ground, fantastic, for lack of a better term, cow ground. We can raise numerous species there, and I'm excited to see the kind of impact there goes. West Virginia is another state in the future. I'm really excited to see that as well.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's really exciting, and I I got to tell you a personal story. Last year, a buddy of mine, they had a young male giraffe, and they just got a young female giraffe, and he said, let's go in the giraffe barn, like you're talking about earlier. You got to have a giraffe barn and you own giraffes. And he said, let's go in the giraffe barn, and the vet's coming out. We're going to do a check on this young female. And we walked in there, and she came up to me, bent her head down, and wrapped her tongue, all the way around my forearm. I felt like a 12-year-old kid. I was like,
Yeah.
this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. It's the coolest thing ever. It doesn't get any cooler. That's as cool as it gets. So in bottle feeding a baby giraffe or something.
So tell the truth. How many baby animals have you guys had actually in your houses and your ranch houses running around when they're young?
Oh,
So personally, bottle baby kangaroo and a bottle baby sable, which was very interesting. The sable would chase cars down the driveway. I mean, that's not something you see every day. I've had a male and female bottle baby sable. They get to a certain point, they start to sexually mature. You have to kick them back out into the pasture. It just becomes a safety concern. But yeah, a lot of kangaroos, and sable, but we see all of it. Like I've seen bottle babies from every species. I've seen Inyala, I've seen bongo, all the gazelles, seen them all, seen all the bottle baby opportunities.
both fortunately and unfortunately, depending on who you ask, we haven't had any bottle babies at my house. My wife is definitely on the team of bring them home, no matter what they are, where they come from, bring them on. I know the long term picture of what that could be, so we haven't had that happen yet. But my wife always likes to give me a hard time because anytime she goes into a difficult or arduous meeting for work, it seems like I always pop up with I'm snuggling a baby giraffe or something like that. I'll send her a picture and that's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, that is very cool.
The Houston Safari Club Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the future of hunting and conservation. Wildlife and habitat conservation, youth education and outdoor experiences, scholarships, and anti-poaching efforts are just a few of the programs supported by this organization. monthly events, an annual convention, award-winning publications, networking opportunities, and valuable resources for hunting knowledge are just a few of the benefits of being a member of Houston Safari Club Foundation. If you're searching for a group of people dedicated to protecting the future of hunting, look no further. Join Houston Safari Club Foundation today at wehuntwegive.org or call 713-623-8844.
Well, as we wrap up here, guys, is there any parting message you want to leave for our audience regarding what you do in the exotic industry and WildLife Ranch Solutions?
Yeah. So if you want to add, some just beautiful, beautiful animals to the aesthetic of your ranch, and don't pay the IRS if you don't have to. I just have to throw that in there. Call us and let us come out and talk to you about the potential of your property. And the rule of thumb is, Joe, I want to cover this real quick. A lot of people ask, hey, how many acres do I need? If you can qualify for an ag exemption, we can put animals on your place. So 20 to 20,000. I mean, we've had customers that had 40,000 acres before, in far west Texas. So call us. If this industry is not a good fit for you, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll still be happy to come out and talk to you about the benefits and how it can enhance your life. Period.
Yeah. People right here in downtown, or not downtown, but suburban San Antonio have kangaroos. They have Dama gazelle. So it doesn't mean you don't have to have, to Joe's point, you don't have to have just millions of acres. You can do it right there for some species, right near, close to home.
That's right.
And it's so cool that you guys are the resource for that. I think a lot of people don't realize I can't own these types of animals. My property is not big enough, but that you guys have the experience and the knowledge to go in and go, yeah, this property can support these animals, or it can't, but we can get it there.
Yep.
And also let's talk about the tax benefits and all these things. That's very encouraging for people who own what we call in Texas ranchettes.
That's right.
That own these small properties, and they're like, man, it'd be so cool if I had X animal in there. Well, you can, and you just need to call these guys up and talk to them about how to make that happen. So Joe Bailey, Chuck Dye with WildLife Ranch Solutions. Check out their website, wildliferanchsolutions.com, and call these guys up. If you're sitting on some property, you want some animals on it, these are the guys to talk to. Thank you guys so very much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having us, Joe.
All right, folks, that wraps up another episode of Hunting Matters brought to you by the Houston Safari Club Foundation. We'll see you on our next episode. Take care and have a great week. Hunting Matters is a Houston Safari Club Foundation production. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For questions or more information, email us at info@wehuntwegive.org.